When it comes to the race for 2020, presidential candidate Cory Booker revealing what he's going to be looking for in a running mate.
If you got the nomination, would you commit to choosing a woman as your vice presidential running mate?
I think it would be malpractice. I'm not going to make any specific commitments, but we clearly should have. I believe there should be a woman president right now, and it worked very hard to get one. But we have such a great field of leaders. I think that you will rarely see a Democratic ticket anymore without gender diversity, race diversity. I think it's something that we should have. So I'm not going to box myself in, but should I become it, I'll be looking to women first.
Grace, Brett, and Bill back with me. Grace, does Booker have a point? Do you think the country has reached a place where we are seeing race or gender diversity on the presidential ticket from now on? While he says that, on any given night, I could turn on Tucker Carlson and he'll be telling me that there's a war on men in this country.
Well, I do think that when it comes to Democrats, that's going to be a big part of the conversation, especially given the number of women who are running for this office. But at the same time, I'm sure you've had these conversations, too, with political people. There is a fear among some in the Democratic Party that a woman cannot win against Donald Trump and cannot win the White House. This is a conversation that many people are having. And so that question hangs over the Democratic field right now. So I think for male candidates, not just Cory Booker, but any of them, they are going to have to answer for why not a woman at this particular moment in time. At the same time, I think there are some concerns among some of the Democratic Party about whether a woman can win, especially against this president.
I want to talk about Howard Schultz for a moment. He was part of another town hall last night, and he's been hit for being vague on answers around things like race and tax reform. And where that doesn't make sense, a criticism when you look at someone who's super wealthy who runs is, are they going to be empathetic? Do they understand the plight of others? Are they out of touch? And I want to share what he said.
We had a problem. And it's a problem that I think exists widely in this country. And it's something that I would characterize as unconscious bias. As somebody who grew up in a very diverse background as a young boy in the projects, I didn't see color as a young boy. And I honestly don't see color now. I should be paying more taxes. And people who are in the bracket of making millions of dollars, or whatever the number might be, should be paying more taxes. I don't know what the number is. I think what I'm saying is we need comprehensive tax reform.
How long can he give these vague answers? I mean, he hasn't officially announced his candidacy, but I don't know that it's a positive to say I can't see color. Race is an issue.
Of course it's an issue. I don't think Howard Schultz's candidacy is particularly interesting from an electoral point of view. It's interesting in terms of what it means as a signal to the Democratic Party that many centrist liberals feel that the party is moving too far to the left. And going back to what we were discussing earlier, the question of does the ticket have to have racial diversity or gender diversity? In some ways, of course, it's wonderful if it does. But if that starts becoming a litmus test, it is going to hurt the Democrats because it's going to mean that they remain a party of identitarians. And that didn't help the last time when a party starts breaking up the country into different kinds of segments. I don't think it's going to help it. It's going to help it right now. The Democratic Party has to start sounding a lot more centrist than this early field of candidates makes it seem.
Bill, according to Politico, Mike Bloomberg is preparing to spend at least $500 million of his own money to deny Trump a second term. What do you make of this strategy?
Great. I mean, I think the more people who are trying very hard to deny Donald Trump a second term is great for America.
You think it means he's running?
I have my doubts now. I know a lot of people are saying that he will, and the betting is that he will, but he's also a very pragmatic man, and he may say to himself, I can spend this money and have more impact by not running than running, because I think he is going to quickly realize once again that he probably cannot win the Democratic nomination.
I'm going to say something quickly. Earlier today, I was on the Hugh Hewitt show. Bill has been a contributor on Bloomberg Television. I worked there for 5 years, so both of us know Mike very well. Hugh asked me, would I be open to being Mike Bloomberg's press secretary? I jokingly said, sure, I'm open to anything. I see headlines already crossing saying I'm up for that job. That's absurd. And as a private citizen, if any sitting president called me for a meeting on any job, I would obviously take that meeting. Hugh Hewitt, shame on you. This is a false headline. Let's talk about the Green New Deal. Mitch McConnell saying he wants to maybe have a vote on the Senate floor. Is this his attempt to put Democrats on the spot?
It is. He certainly wants to get Democrats counted on where they come down on this. We're hearing Howard Schultz. We're hearing Mike Bloomberg even saying that this is not a realistic approach to dealing with the environment, even from somebody like Mike Bloomberg, who has made the environment and fighting climate change a key issue that he has put a lot of his own money into. So yes, he's trying to put Democrats on notice. I'm not sure that this is going to work out in his favor, especially given the level of concern and especially when you look at sort of the generational divide in this country. Young people are very concerned about what's happening with the environment. It's an issue that they want to see their politicians tackling. I don't think that they're that concerned about sort of the dollars and cents attached to this plan. I think they just we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm, especially from young voters on the left who want this talked about, who want this to be a central focal point in Washington. And frankly, it hasn't been until you had people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez show up and say, look, we need to be talking about this.
We need to be talking about it, but to Nancy Pelosi's point, she didn't say she's behind it. She said, I still haven't seen all the details yet. Let's talk about Kamala Harris, Brett, because she wants to focus on raising incomes for the working and middle class. She laid out a plan to actually give some families up to $6,000 in tax credits. Walk me through what you think of this.
Look, on the whole, I actually think the idea of universal income is not a bad idea. It's been
starting it in Stockton, I want to say a week from now.
Yeah, and it's been advocated by conservative scholars. Charles Murray, I think, was the first person to write an entire book on it. So it's an intriguing idea. The whole question is, how much does it cost? Who gets it? And what are the requirements for it?
All right. Speaking of money, Amy Klobuchar. Within 48 hours, she raised over $1 million from online and grassroots supporters. That's a big number. I mean, for me, I'm constantly talking about how upsetting it is that there's this much money even going around fundraising and politics. Imagine if it went to the environment, to roads and bridges, to our education system. But what do you make of this? I mean, if she can raise that much money in a day and a half, does she have a fighting chance?
You know, it was a good start for her. I mean, you know, I think she wanted to appear as tough, and she did appear as tough, you know, braving it in that, you know, snowstorm in that cold weather, and she hung in there, and I think she impressed people with that in a way, in the same way that she did during the Kavanaugh hearings. So I think she and Kamala Harris got off to a very good start, but, you know, is it sustainable? Is it, you know, it's a long race, you know, who knows what's going to happen with these people.
But Klobuchar is the only Democratic candidate who has announced so far who can beat Donald Trump.
Why?
Because she has a Midwestern appeal, because she's pragmatic, because she's not beholden to the party's extremes. She is exactly what Donald Trump fears the most, which is someone coming from the heart of the country and speaking to the heart of the country, not to the coast.
She said, I got grit.
Yeah, but I disagree with Brett, and I normally don't, but I do disagree. I think any person who gets the Democratic nomination can beat Donald Trump in 2020.
Okay, any person. Is one of those people going to be Bill de Blasio? He's heading to New Hampshire this week.
That's right. I think it's contagious, right? The 2020 bug. But he seems to be getting it. He is heading to New Hampshire on Friday. Look, Bill de Blasio at this point, the mayor of New York City, seems to be a one-man hype machine, hyping his own presidential ambitions. We're not seeing a lot of support for that in New York among voters who know him best. There was a poll out in late January. New York State voters were asked who they think of New York's elected officials would make the best president. Mike Bloomberg came in first. Bill de Blasio came in last place in that poll behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
How many people were in it, though? So if Mike was number one.
Mike, then it was, I believe, I can't remember if it was Gillibrand or Cuomo next. They were either second or third, then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and then Bill de Blasio.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.